Production funding is provided by A. Reddix and Associates, Health Information Resource Center, offering short-term training for long-term professional careers in medical coding. HIRCVA.net.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. What better way to start the new year than to spend time with our roundtable? Tonight, our issues range from the called-for execution of Michael Vick to what challenges the African American community will face in 2011. Please welcome Roger Chesley, columnist for the Virginian Pilot, Carol Pretlow, Associate Professor of Political Science at Norfolk State University, and our resident community activist, Bill Thomas. Hi, Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year to you,
Now, let me let you all
Barbara.
know, Will is out because he had to travel, and so he sends his regrets, but I'm sure the three of you...
He might be scared of us.
Could be. I'm sure the three of you will carry on now. Okay, so I'm home during the holidays, took a little time off, and I see this clip. Mr. Tucker Carlson, Fox News, actually calling for Michael Vick's execution. So before we talk about it, let's take a look at what he had to say.
President Obama, it has been confirmed by the White House, called the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, and during the course of their conversation, thanked him for giving Michael Vick a second chance. Now, I'm a Christian. I've made mistakes myself. I believe fervently in second chances. But Michael Vick killed dogs, and he did in a heartless and cruel way. And I think, personally, he should have been executed for that. He wasn't. But the idea that the President of the United States would be getting behind someone who murdered dogs, kind of beyond the pale.
I'm a little uncertain as to why.
Wow. I mean, there are so many different things that I could say, but since I'm not the ones to discuss it, I'll let you all start. I'm going to start with you, Carol. What did you think about that?
It took my breath away, mainly because I think of the death penalty as being reserved for heinous crimes against human beings. I don't think of it, and I'm not excusing what Michael Vick did. I'm just saying that I think that goes beyond the pale. I think that he learned his lesson. He has understood what he did wrong, and we're giving him a second chance, and I don't understand what's wrong with that.
Bill?
I'm not surprised by it. I think that when people have certain mentalities of how they see things, when we know that, as I've discussed on this program before, over the past 17 years, according to FBI statistics, over 235,000 African Americans have died on our streets. Just in Norfolk last week, a couple African American women were killed in behind a church. And we don't put the seriousness and take it serious when our folks die. Other people take it lightly. What he said was wrong, absolutely. But in the context of us really standing up for the deaths and the destructions and the pilot, Elizabeth Simpson had a wonderful story about infant mortality. And there's no moral authority in our community that's saying, this is not right. So what would you think someone like Mr.
Carlson
would say? So I just see it in that context. It's wrong, but then again, because we don't stand up, when that Holloway young lady got killed in Aruba, she was on television and in the newspapers for, what, 5-6 years, and they're still talking about it. When our people die on the streets, it's just blown over.
Well, there's all sorts of issues we could get into, but I don't let Bill set my agenda, fortunately. We should understand, first of all, that Tucker and some individuals on this show from sometimes like to throw bombs and then see what anybody would say. And we have to understand that some of these talk shows, they're all about saying something outrageous and then trying to see what the fallout will be. I don't think he took it seriously when he said it. And it was outrageous. I think he was trying to make a dig at the president. And if the president had said the exact opposite, he would have probably complained at that particular comment. So I didn't take him seriously when he said it. It was an outrageous comment, but so much of what goes on several of the talk shows, especially on Fox and especially on MSNBC to a certain extent, you get this very partisan, very
polarizing.
Yeah. I thought that this country was all about second chances, and if people get out of prison, I would hope that we give them some opportunity to do something and to perhaps be productive again. And any Philadelphia Eagles fan will tell you that Michael Vick has been very productive this year. And they're probably saying, Donovan who?
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
So,
well, but in all fairness, also to Tucker Carlson, he did retract his statement.
it was a very weak retraction.
But he said what he
go ahead.
meant. He said what he meant, and my colleague, I just disagree with you.
Well,
I think he's reflecting. I think he's reflecting the tenor of how folks see us.
Well, I think he might be reflecting the tenor of, first of all, that particular station doesn't like anything that the Democrat or the president
I don't know about
does.
all that.
And secondly, that yes, he was convicted of dogfighting, but it was reprehensible. I thought Michael Vick has served out of proportion to what the offense was, but that's probably a discussion for another day.
I have a small example.
He's out of prison. He's out of prison, and I'm glad he's doing well.
Exactly.
And I think we should cheer that.
A small example, and I'll let it go.
then
Small
we'll let
example.
Carol get in.
We had a dog. We loved this dog dearly. This dog, a German Shepherd, we've had him in our family. We're out jogging, and the dog died. Just fell out. It was hot, and he just died. The whole community came over and tried to help us make this dog live. They called an ambulance, they called the police, they called everybody. They did everything possible to make this dog live. 2 black women were killed, murdered in the back of a church, and I don't hear anything.
I would disagree with you, but I don't think that they're also.
You wouldn't make the comparison between
No.
the two.
No,
between
well,
the
he
two.
said it for a reason.
I'm not going to be comparing dogs to humans.
Well,
I'm
he said
sorry.
it for a reason.
And we still don't know what the circumstances are behind that apparent homicide. Behind that homicide.
Where's Jesse Jackson?
I don't know. Don't you have him on speed dial? You're the community activist.
Carol, let's get you in the conversation.
I think I'm still back to what you said about a reflection of the tenor of the community. And I'm not sure that in 2011 I would believe this. What happened to this post-racial society and the idea that we are beyond being
Racial?
racial?
Oh, that's not true.
Okay.
Race is real.
Yeah, I think it's still very much a part of what's going on in society today too. But Tucker's comments.
Well, why do you think that
Tucker's comments were very? I mean, they were polarizing. They were political. It's what they do on the station.
I understand
and
that,
I didn't expect anything different.
But even
from
beyond
them.
what he said, and you're right, Fox, that's their agenda, to make people react the way that they do. However, whenever you say the word Michael Vick, it just causes this polarization between people. Why is he such a lightning rod?
Because he's dark, he's black, and he's successful. No, see, you don't want to hear that.
No, go ahead.
You don't want to hear that. But it's true. It's true.
And he killed dogs. And now, again, I think
that's just like they had.
Let me just say, I think some of the length of the sentence I thought was too long. There have been people who have killed other human beings who have gotten less time, especially in DUI incidents and different types of domestic violence cases. All that said, though, again, I go back to the point. He was in prison. He did his time. He came out. This is what he does for a living. Let the man have a chance to do what he does for a living. If he fails, fine. If he succeeds, fine. But give him the opportunity to do that. And more importantly, there are so many of people who look like us who are locked up and one day really are going to get out. Are we going to give them the same opportunities to get back at what they might be able to do well? Or are we going to say they should be executed or not have a chance to ever become productive again? And what does that do if you don't give them a chance to become productive?
Exactly. And then there are people who say because they don't get the voting rights back and they're not allowed to do some other things, Carol, that they can't become productive.
And you see, I have to disagree with that too, of course, because I taught at Southampton Correctional Center for maybe 3 or 4 years. And I taught young men who I saw learning, progressing, and my hope was that when they graduated from the program that I was teaching in, that they would become productive members. But they can't if we're going to shut the door and say, oh, no, they're worthless. They only can if we are encouraging and supporting of their desire for change.
I got a call this week from a woman who's 50, I believe lives in Portsmouth. She said, Michael Vick got another chance. I am trying to work again. I got a felony conviction, but I never even served any time behind bars, but I did get a felony conviction. I've been clean for 13 years. I want to get a chance to work. I've got a nurse's aid license or something in that particular field. Please, can I have a chance? She's tried to get jobs. And if you don't give people, and yes, this is a tough economy for everybody. You can have a clean record and still not get a job. It's that much tougher for people who've been do have some type of prison record or felony record. But if we don't make opportunities for folks like this, they're going to go back to what they used to know.
Because they don't have any other choice.
Exactly.
Well, or at least some people will say they don't have a choice.
They have a choice.
Go ahead.
You got
you always have a choice.
My last issue on it, you're just terribly naive. I just believe you're terribly naive. The man said it, he meant what he said.
Who, Tucker?
Yeah, that's correct.
Let me ask
he
you
only
this,
he only meant something to get ratings, and it was on the news cycle for about 3 days.
But let me ask you this, because he really was slamming, or some could perceive it as he was slamming President Obama. Should the president have been involved in that whole Michael Vick discussion to begin with?
I think the president can make statements that he thinks are worthwhile, or he can be interested in pop culture. He can be interested in things that that Americans are interested in. I have no problem with him making a comment like that. And I do like the idea of rewarding folks who have given somebody a second chance, and that's what he was doing about the Philadelphia Eagles owner. Right. He was lauding him.
I don't agree.
You don't agree that he should have been involved?
I think he should have done it quietly. I think we should.
I think he did it quietly.
No, once he spoke, he was speaking for America as the president. I think we should be more in tune with talking to kids who didn't kill dogs, kids that went to school, that are doing the right things. I think we ought to be more supportive of those that are living the right life.
I think we
and
are
he ought to be more
supportive of
out
those
front of
folks.
that versus trying to look at some star athlete that will pay $30 million, and then we'll have our best teachers will pay $25,000.
You're trying to say that it's all or nothing. There are a lot of different things that go on in this great country.
But the president has a list of things to do, and you got to set some priorities. And I'm just saying that
I
think
have no
we should
problem with him making a comment about that. He makes comments about all different types of topics. He's a smart man, and I had no problem with him making a comment about that.
Carol?
Neither did I. In fact, I like to see the president have a wide range of involvements and opinions about things. Yes, some of them are going to be phenomenally important, and some of them are going to be lesser so, but I'd like to see a diversity, and I think he shows a good example of us being involved in a wide range of things.
And just a few weeks before that, the First Lady was being criticized because she was saying things to try to help kids, work on the whole obesity issue. I mean, what kind of nonsense is this?
Well,
please, what the problem we have in this country.
What the president does, he's going to be criticized for.
Yeah, and the First Lady too.
Yes.
What should be a non-controversial issue. Come on now.
Bill?
I just think you ought to set your priorities. I think there's more important issues that we need to deal with. There are a lot of Americans out here. I think he should speak to the issue of African Americans not being able to pass the Army test.
How long do you think that phone call lasted?
It lasted too long.
It didn't last that long that day.
All right, let's move on to our next topic, because you guys are not going to nobody's going to convince Bill otherwise. But that's okay.
He's not going to convince us either.
Okay, something else that happened during the holidays. The mayor of Norfolk, Mayor Frame, and the police chief, Police Chief Markey, thank you, apologized to Dominique Marsh, quarterback for Booker T. Washington High School, a young man with a backpack on his back walking towards the school, and he was arrested for truancy. Had never been in trouble before. How does that happen? Why do you think this? I mean, we don't know what was going on in this officer's head, or do we? And I'm going to start with you on this one.
Oh, okay.
No. Why does it happen? Because Norfolk probably has one of the highest truancy rates in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That's probably why it happened. So they have passed regulations and provisions. Did you see kids walking around on the street, pick them up and take them to school?
But he was going to school.
How did they know where he was going?
In the direction of the school.
Oh, so they picked him up and took him to school. What's wrong with that?
No.
Well,
go ahead.
First of all, how much reporting
hold
did you
on to
do
this
on this particular issue to come up with that Norfolk has the highest rate?
Oh, a lot.
Okay.
And I'll share it with you, but it has the highest truancy, has the highest dropout rates.
I'm not sure that it is the highest.
I said one of the highest truancy rates in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
I did some actual reporting on this particular issue.
Well, let's write it again, then we'll see that. And you're saying they don't have the highest, one of the highest truancy rates?
I'm not saying, but you made it sound like they were number one in this.
No, I said one of the highest. Let me correct the record if you think it's wrong. One of the highest truancy rates in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
For a few years, and thank you, Bill. For a few years, Norfolk has tried to crack down on truants and curfew violators, and that was part of the issue. There are actually more curfew violators on that list of roughly 9,500 to 10,000 that the public schools in the city released. So first of all, I don't even consider curfew violation within the same category as truancy. I consider that they should be in school, get them to school. But look at the situation that took place. This young man always was allowed. He apparently did not have a first period class, so he did not have to be there until about 10:30. Secondly, on this particular day, he was going to school even earlier than that. I forget what the exact time, between 9:20. He was walking towards school. He did this nearly every day, according to the reporting that we had. Larry Rubama, one of the reporters on the story initially, said this was one of the things he did practically every day. He walked from the public housing project he lived in to school. Now, there's a couple of things I didn't understand. We tried several times to talk to the police officer. The police department did not allow us to do that. So then you are left with the story of this one young man and basically the police department, which wouldn't let us talk to the primary source in this. He was walking to school. He was only about 2 blocks away from school. If you put him into the car, you have to handcuff him for security reasons. In my mind, that means you should do everything possible not to put him into the car. Did he mouth off? I think he probably did at some point. But at that point, he also was probably already in handcuffs. He was probably scared, and he was probably very angry. I know I would have been if I had been in that same situation. And I have been stopped several times on the street and in the car when I did nothing wrong.
So do you think the whole thing is profiling?
I think that's partly it, but also if it had been a white student, would it have happened? It may have. But I do know this is Booker T, predominantly black school. I still can't get around the fact that he was going to school. He was about 2 blocks away. And my understanding is that the police officer who did the stop had recently come on that particular patrol, so he might not have seen him earlier.
Don't you think there could have been enough conversation to happen before this kid had to be handcuffed and put in the back of a police car, Carol, so that he would know what happened before that happened?
Explaining to him what the perception of the officer was, from him saying, okay, where are you going? Why are you at this particular time? Are you usually in this area at this time? To get some background before you cuff him and put him in the car. And then based on those responses, even maybe, and I'm not familiar with police procedures here, calling in and saying, this is the situation. But let's escalate it, which is what happened. It escalated into something that is very unpleasant.
Bill's about to bust over here.
No, I just think, again, I don't understand it. The police officer did his job. Or her. I'm assuming it was a him.
It was a him.
Did his job. And you guys are busting on the police officer doing their job.
Oh, I'm just asking to be objective.
Because you don't know what happened. You don't know what happened.
You don't know what happened
either.
So I'm assuming the police officer.
I will tell you that I've done more reporting about it than you have, and I know more about this case than a lot of other people do up here right now. So, and there might be some things that I can't say publicly.
Police officers are doing exactly what they're paid to do.
They're doing
are
what
empowered
they're trained to do.
And taxpayers are sick and tired of seeing kids walking around the streets, not going to school, not finishing school. So they're trying to put a stop to this.
This kid was going to school. And don't say that you treat everybody one way and then therefore this particular individual
Bill,
should
let me
be
ask you a
swept
question.
up.
I don't understand.
Bill,
I
let
don't
me ask you a
understand what you guys are
question.
saying.
Do you believe that there is such a thing as profiling?
Absolutely.
As racial profiling?
Absolutely.
Under what circumstances?
Absolutely.
And so, do you
Absolutely.
think that's what happened in this case?
If I probably believe it did happen. I probably believe it did happen. And so that's why you have to. I've been profiled all my life. I come from segregated schools. I understand that. But what we did, we were taught to act polite. We were asked to dress a certain way, to speak a certain way, to be very, very communicative with what we had to do. Or we used to get a club upside our head. So I'm just saying we understand that. Yeah. So for you to make all these other assumptions, again, I think there's a problem with truancy in the school system. There's a problem with kids dropping out who look like us in the school system. There's a problem with violence. And so all that stuff gets into the equation.
So what you're saying is you can do that to anybody you see on the street then because, well, there's a problem with truancy, so this individual must be a truant. Well, take that a step further.
Okay.
You're walking down the street, I'm walking down the street, and the police can stop us because, I don't know, we have a vague description of somebody who robbed something, so we should cuff you, throw you up against the wall.
But you're making a very bad assumption.
Wait a minute. But it's for purposes of this conversation, it's not very far apart.
Okay.
And that's a very slippery slope when you treat an individual as the whole group. And in this particular case, come back to this particular case, this young man was doing the right thing. He was going to school. He was going to fill out college applications or to look for scholarships when he went to school that morning.
You're making an assumption that the police are evil, that they're profiling people, that they're not being
nice,
they're not doing their job. The police officers out here protecting us.
The police department sometimes is wrong.
Yeah,
just like
you're
we as
wrong
individuals,
sometimes.
Yeah, but not many times. Though.
Okay, listen.
There we go.
We've only got about 3 minutes left, and I need to hear from you all about your predictions for what challenges the community is going to face this year. And Carol, since you've spoken the least in this half hour here today, I'm going to start with you. What do you think we're going to deal with?
Of course, the predominant challenge is economic, and of course, jobs and education and health all flow from that. So I think it's going to be a challenge for our community, particularly because the unemployment rate is 9.8, 8.9 or something. If it's that level, then it means the African American community, it's much in excess of that. And the challenge will be to come up with programs and opportunities to lessen that effect.
Okay, Bill?
I'm going to just be more specific. I think that the General Assembly is going to do something with charter schools. I think the public has now said there's time to do something. Our public schools, some of our public schools aren't working. And I think that there's going to be a groundswell of support for Bob McDonnell in getting charter schools approved. And I think Chris Stewart is going to take Tom Gear's seat in Hampton.
And so the charter schools, and you're saying that will give more opportunities for our students to decide to go to charter schools?
That is correct. He'll make it more evenly competitive with the bureaucracy and the teachers' unions that are retarding the education of too many of our kids.
Okay. Roger.
And I'll just quickly on charter schools, they are not a panacea. Some work well, some work poorly. So there's that. I think one of the issues that
here we go.
I think one of the issues we do have to be concerned about is how do we keep our young men from jail? Yes, I understand how so many of us are in jail or in prison, and you can see that anytime you go to Norfolk City Jail or to some of the prisons in the state. How do we keep them out? How do we try to work with them when some of the young men who have gone into prison come out? And secondly, how are we going to prepare our children in a society is much more technological, it's much more global competition. We've got to do some things. These aren't easy issues, and I don't have any pat answers to them, but I think those are some of the things I want to look at and see what are we doing about that this year.
What are we going to do about the technology, Bill?
The technology is that we have to teach our children how to read. We have to teach our children how to be disciplined. The one disturbing thing that bothers me, and I hope you do a piece on this, is that the Army DOD came out with a study that says our children, 70% of our children who are taking Army tests can't pass them. I don't know a strong African-American family in my lifetime that didn't have a military background or experience. I don't know of any. And now we've closed the door there. So I agree with you. But I think it's really simple. We need to bring morality and prayer back into the charter schools that I want to get involved in. I think we got to stop sparing the rod. I think we have to show our kids discipline, and I just think that is the ingredient.
And
government can't do it.
We're out of time. I know you guys get ready to get started, and I hate that we're out of time, but we'll have next month to start it up again. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back after this look at what's happening in Hampton Roads. If you enjoy Another View, please show us by doing any one of these three things. Visit our website, www.anotherview.tv, and sign up for our eView newsletter. Or you can become a fan on Facebook, or even better still, become a member of WHRO. Your membership will ensure that programs like Another View can continue, and we sure thank you for your membership. Next week, we'll examine why so many of our young people are dropping out of school and what we can do to stem the tide. We'll see you next time for Another View.
Production funding is provided by A. Reddix and Associates, Health Information Resource Center, offering short-term training for long-term professional careers in medical coding. HIRCVA.net.